This video is sponsored by the Ultimate Freelancing Bundle by StudyWebDevelopment.com, which gives you everything you need to start your own freelancing business, including a 130-page in-depth guide, invoicing and client proposal templates, website templates, an SEO checklist, and much more. Visit the link in the description and use the code BRAD25 to get 25% off. Hey, what's going on, guys? So in this project, we're going to be building a landing page that has a CSS-only hamburger menu. And I'm sure most of you know what a hamburger menu is, or you've at least seen them. They're these menus that have the three lines, kind of looks like a hamburger. And you click it, and then some kind of menu opens. So sometimes it can slide over from the side or the top. In this case, it's going to just come right from the middle. So we're going to have CSS transition to give us that effect. Also to give us the animation on the hamburger itself. You can see when I click it, it turns into an X. We also have this little animation when I hover over it, and yeah, that's what we'll be building. And it's completely responsive, so if it's a smaller screen, mobile screen or something, yeah, so that still looks pretty good. And if this looks familiar to you, you've probably taken my HTML and CSS course on Udemy, which I'll put a link in the description. This is actually one of the smaller projects in that course. Now we're going to build this start to finish, including this whole showcase area here. So what I'm going to do is put in some timestamps if you just want to skip the HTML, or if you want to skip the whole showcase part and go right to creating the menu. All right. Otherwise, you know, you can watch the whole thing, because I like to start from scratch in most of my projects, and a lot of you guys probably know that. I don't like to just throw you into into the middle of a project. So let's jump into VS Code. Now I do have the files created, so if you're going to follow along, you can go ahead and create this simple file structure. We have an index.html, we have a CSS folder with a style.css for our main styles, and then menu.css, just because there's a lot of CSS that goes into creating this menu, so I figured I'd give it its own file. And then I just have an image folder with this beach image here. Of course, you can use any image you want. I will put a code pen in the description that will have this image if you want to use this one. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. In the way that this works without JavaScript, just show you real quick. The hamburger menu actually has a checkbox. Okay, so we're using a checkbox with the class of toggler, and that's how we're toggling it, is we're styling the checked state. Okay, usually you'll use JavaScript to do stuff like this, but in CSS you can target the checked state, so that's how we can add specific styles when it's checked. All right, so that's what we're going to be doing. So we'll start off with the HTML, and like I said, I'll put timestamps in case you want to skip this part, but the HTML is pretty simple. So let's go ahead and create our head body tags and boilerplate. And for the title, I'm just going to say hamburger menu. We'll say CSS hamburger menu, and we want to link our style sheets. So let's link CSS/style, and then right below that we'll do CSS/menu. Okay, and I'm going to be using the Roboto font. So let's grab that real quick from fonts.google.com. Whoops, that's fine. All right, so I want Roboto, which is this first one here. So we'll click that. We'll grab the link. And yeah, we can just copy that and close this up, and we'll put that right above our style sheets. All right, so in the body, we're going to basically have two sections, the menu and then the showcase, which is the landing page. So the menu is going to have a class of menu wrap all the way around it, so around everything. And then we'll have our input with the type of checkbox, and we don't need a name or ID here. We do need a class, and I'm going to call that toggler. All right, and then underneath that we're going to have the class of hamburger, and inside here we're going to have just an empty div like that. Okay, and then underneath that we're going to have a class of menu, and inside menu we're going to have two more divs, and you'll see why we have these later on when we get to the CSS. Okay, inside that div we're going to have our UL, and we'll have our list items with our links. They're not going to actually go anywhere. Let's just say home, and let's do about, and services. Of course, you can put whatever links you want here, and then contact. All right, so that's it. That's our menu, HTML. So let's go under the last div here, and let's do, I'm going to use a header tag here. You can use whatever you want. I'm just going to use header, and let's say showcase, class showcase. And then we're going to have a class of container, which is going to be our basic container to move everything into the middle and so on. But also have a class of showcase dash inner, which will wrap around the content so we can center it using Flexbox. So inside here, let's do H1. We'll just say welcome. Paragraph, I'm going to do lorem 20. And then we just want a link formatted as a button. So I'm going to give it a class of BTN. And for the text, we'll just say read more. All right, and that's it. That's the HTML. So I'm going to open this with my live server extension, and that's what it's going to look like. And notice we have the checkbox at the top. So let's actually make this smaller just so we can have both on the same screen here as we work. And I'm going to close up my sidebar, and we should be all set with the HTML, so we can close that up as well. And now we're going to style the main showcase area, landing area, whatever you want to call it. So up at the top here in style.css, I'm going to set some variables on the root scope. I do have a video on CSS variables if you've never used them before, but they're pretty easy. We just use double hyphen. I'm going to set the primary color variable, and I want to set this to an RGBA value so that it can have some transparency. So red, green, blue, alpha will allow us to assign the last value is the opacity. So let's do 13 red, 110 green, and 139 blue. And then for the opacity, 0.75. Okay, so that's that greenish, bluish color. And then we're also going to have an overlay color, which is going to be the background when the menu's open, that darker color, which also needs to be transparent. So we're going to do RGBA for that. And let's do 24, 39, and 51. And then the transparency we'll do 0.85. Okay, and then I'll have one more variable for the menu speed so that we can easily change that if we want. That's going to be 0.75 seconds. So those are our variables. Now let's do some of the core styling. I'm going to add a reset. So I pretty much always set the box sizing to border box and just zero out the margin and padding. Okay, and then for the body, remember we're using Roboto, so let's do font, family, and Roboto, and sans serif. Okay, and I'm going to set the line height to, let's say, 1.4. And if I save that, you can see those styles now take effect. So let's do the container, which just kind of pushes everything to the middle. And we're going to set the max width to kind of a narrow width. I'm just going to do 960. And then set the margin to auto, which will move everything to the middle, and set an overflow of hidden, and set the padding on the sides to 3 rem. Okay, so now it pushes that to the middle. And I know I'm not explaining every single little detail of the CSS, but I'm guessing that you guys know at least a little bit of CSS. If not, check out my CSS crash course, or take the Udemy course, the HTML and CSS from the beginning, which is I think it's a 20-hour course. So now let's do the showcase. So for the showcase, I'm going to set a background color, and I'm going to use the primary color. So to use a variable, we need to do var and then put in whatever that variable is. Okay, and I'll set the text color to white. So if I save that, it's going to look like that. Now I want this to take up the entire screen, and just ignore the menu for now. That's going to be position fixed, so this will move up afterwards. So just focus on this part down. But we want this green or this blue, whatever this color is, to take up the whole screen here. So let's set a height of 100 viewport heights, 100 VH. If I save that, now it takes up the whole viewport. All right, and we want to position this relative because the overlay is going to be positioned absolute with inside of it, or I should say before it. Now to add the overlay, we're going to use showcase with the pseudo selector of before, which kind of creates like a ghost element that we can style. You can even add content, but we just want to add just an empty set of quotes here. And then let's put the background as an image. Okay, we want that beach background or whatever you want to use. So img/showcase. Then we're going to set the background repeat value to no repeat, the position to center, and then let's cover the entire thing. All right. So if I save that, nothing happens. What we're going to do is position this absolute. Okay, so position it absolute. That's why this is positioned relative. And we want to set the starting point of top 0, left 0, so top corner, and then set the width to 100%, so it goes all the way across, and the height, whoops, what did I do? And the height also to 100%. So basically we want this to cover this whole area. So if I go ahead and save this, what happens is it gets put on top of it. Okay, so this image is now on top of the content. So to move it in back of it, we're going to just set the z index to -1 to push it back. All right, so now it's behind it, and the reason we can see it is because the showcase background color is RGBA, so we can see through it. Okay, and if I go up to the primary color, I could change this to like 0.45, and now it's more transparent. If I set it to 1, you can see it's completely solid. So I think that 7.5 is pretty good, but of course you can change it. All right, so now let's focus on this content here, style that. So we have our showcase class, and then we have a showcase dash inner, which we're gonna use flexbox to center everything. So let's do display flex. Now if I do that, automatically it turns into a row, a horizontal row. So I want to set the flex direction to column. All right, that puts it back, and then we can use align items to center. Let's do justify content to center and text align to center. All right, now if I do that, it doesn't center it this way because the element that it's in doesn't have a height. So we want to set the height to 100%, the whole thing, and save, and that didn't work because I need a semicolon. And there we go. And it might not look centered just because of the menu, it's pushing everything down, but it's centered within this. And we're gonna just change some styles on the text here, the heading and so on. So let's do showcase H1, and let's make that heading bigger. So I'm gonna do a font size of 4 rem. And let's target the paragraph, and let's make that a little bigger. So we'll do font size 1.3 rem, and a rem unit is just 1 rem is equivalent to the pixels of the root HTML element, which by default is 16 pixels. Okay, I actually have a video explaining rem and m units and VH and VW units if you're interested. So the last thing we have to style in this showcase is the button. So I'm just going to do btn, and let's display this as an inline block so that it works on links and so on. And then border, we're going to set that to none. The background, I'm actually going to use we'll do background color, and I'm going to use the primary color. So let's do var primary color. And the text color is going to be white. Padding, we'll do 0.75 rem top and bottom, and then let's do 1.5 rem left and right. And then I'm just going to add a little bit of margin to the top to push it down. All right, so if I save that, that's what it looks like. Let's get rid of the text decoration, so underline. And then for the hover, let's do dot btn colon hover. I'm just going to set the opacity to 0.7. Okay, so if I hover over it, makes it a little lighter. Now, I want it to be smooth, so I'm going to add a transition on the opacity property. Let's do 1 second, and we'll just do ease in and save. And now you can see that it happens nice and smooth instead of just flicking to the opacity being less. All right, so that's it for the showcase area. Now we're going to move on to the menu. So in our menu CSS, at the very top, let's add the menu wrap, which wraps around everything. And we want to position this fixed. Okay, if I can spell position. So position fixed, because we want it to be always at the top, even if we could scroll down, which we can't, but if we could, it would still stay at the top. So we want to do top 0, and let's do left 0, and then to make sure it's on top, let's do z-index 1. All right, so we'll save that, and now you can see it's on top of the rest of the content. So now let's do the toggler, which is the checkbox. So menu wrap, toggler, and we want to position this absolute and set it to top 0, left 0. We're going to be doing this with a bunch of the elements. And then z-index of 2. And the cursor should be a pointer if we hover over it. And the width is going to be 50 pixels, and the height is going to be 50 pixels. However, we want to make this invisible. Okay, we don't want to see the checkbox. So we're going to set opacity to 0. And if I save, you can see now the checkbox is gone. Okay, it's still there, it's just hidden. So we have the class of Hamburger underneath, so let's grab the menu wrap class and Hamburger. And that's also going to be positioned absolute. Oops. Okay, and it's going to be top 0, left 0. And then we're going to set the z-index to 1 and set the width of this to 60 pixels and the height to 60 pixels. Okay, so this is that square that the hamburger, that the lines are going to be inside of. So we're going to set a padding of 1 rem because we don't want the lines to be right up against the side, and then a background. I'm going to use the primary color, so we'll use our variable. Oops. It doesn't show up in the IntelliSense because the variables are actually in the other file. However, they will work because if we look at our index.html, the style CSS is above the menu CSS, so we can inherit those variables. All right, so we'll just have to type it out, primary color. Okay, and then we're going to use flex here to align to the center, so flex, and then align items to the center, and let's justify content to the center. And save, and now you can see that outline of the box. And it's see-through because we have the primary color, which has that alpha value. All right, so now let's work on the lines inside of the hamburger. So we'll say hamburger line. This is what we're going to do here is going to be the middle line. Okay, so let's do menu wrap, and then we want to target hamburger, and we want the immediate div. And the way that we can do that is with a greater than sign and then the immediate div. So we're targeting in the HTML. I might as well just leave this file open just to show you. So we want to target this div right here, and that's what we want to put the line on. So let's say position relative, and we want to set the width of the line to 100%. The height is going to be 2 pixels. We want to set a background color of white, and let's add display flex, so we can add align items center and justify content center. and save. And now you can see we have that middle line. Now, to create the top and bottom lines, what we're going to do is take this selector and we're going to use the before and after pseudo selector. Okay, so we want to go right here and do colon before, and then let's also do the style will also pertain to colon after. All right, so we want to make sure content, we add content, and that's just going to be empty quotes. And then we want to position this absolute. All right, we're going to set the Z index to 1. And I want this, we're first going to move both lines above. Okay, so I'm going to do a top position of -10 pixels, which will move both of them above to begin with. And we also want to set a width of 100% and a height of 2 pixels, just like the middle line. And then the background is going to be white, but we'll inherit. Okay, so if I save that, now it looks like there's one line above it, but there's actually two. It's both the before and after. So to create the last line, I'm just going to take the after selector here, and I'm simply going to change the top position now to 10 pixels instead of -10, which will move it down. And now if I save, you can see we have our 3 lines. All right, and just to put some comments in here so we know exactly what is going on, this is the top style for the top and bottom lines, and then this right here moves line down. All right, so now that we have our lines, we want to be able to animate them, and we want it to animate when we click on it. Okay, when we open the menu, which we'll work on the menu in a little bit. But remember, this is a checkbox, so when I click, it actually puts it into a checked state, and we can style that in CSS. So what we'll do here, let's say toggler animate, whoops, and we're going to target menu wrap.toggler. But we want to target the checked state, so we can do :checked. Okay, just like we can do :hover, and we can test for different states. And then we want to do plus hamburger, because we don't actually want to style the checkbox. We want to do the hamburger immediate div. Okay, so just like we did above. And then to rotate it, we can use the CSS transform property with rotate, and this takes in degrees. We're going to do 135 degrees. All right, so now if I save this and I go up here and I click, you can see that it's rotated 135 degrees. So let's see, I think, did I forget something here? Yes, I did. I forgot the transition. You see how it just kind of flicks to that? I want it to transition into that. So right on the hamburger div here, I'm going to add in a transition on all properties. I could have swore I did this. Guess not. So transition on all properties, we'll do 0.4 seconds and ease and save. And now when I click, we get that nice transition effect instead of just flickering to that rotation. All right, so obviously that's not what we want. We want an X. So in order to do that, it's pretty easy. We're just going to grab this here, and let's say turn lines into X. So we'll paste this in, and we want the before and after. So before and after, and set the top position to 0, and then we just want to add a transform on this to rotate 90 degrees, okay, because we want it to be in an X fashion. So if I save that and now I click, both of them go 90 degrees and turn into an X. So pretty easy, not too much CSS at all to be able to do that. Now I also want the effect where if it's checked, okay, right now just think the checkbox is in its check state. I want it to rotate a little bit when I hover over it. So let's do that. Let's say rotate on hover when checked. So to do that, let's grab this selector except we will only want this to happen on hover, so we can add again :hover. Okay, so we're targeting these different states within CSS. And we just want to set transform again, and then rotate. And I'm going to rotate 225 degrees. Okay, so if I save that, it's in its check state right now, so if I hover over it, it rotates 225 degrees. All right, but it doesn't when it's in that, when it's not checked. All right, so now we want to style the menu. Okay, these links right here, they need to be in the middle, they need to be large, and then we have the overlay, and then we need to add the functionality where it only shows when we click this. Okay, so let's start with just styling it, and then we'll do the animation, the transition, stuff like that. So we're going to target, let's see, menu, wrap, and then the class of menu. Okay, remember, we have that class of menu around these two divs and then the UL. So for the main menu class, we're going to position this to be fixed and set the top left 0 and width 100%. We're basically doing the same thing we did with the overlay. We want it to cover the entire area. Now, initially, it's going to be set to visibility hidden, but I want to be able to see it so I can style it first. So I'm gonna put that style, but I'm just going to comment it out for now. All right, and then let's set overflow to hidden, and let's set the display to flex, and align items to center, and justify content to the center. So now if I save, you can see the menu is now directly in the middle here. You can barely see it, but we're going to fix that. So now let's style the immediate div, which is this first div within that menu class. So the way that we can target that is with menu and then div, like that. All right, so the background is going to be that overlay color, which is the dark color, which is transparent. So let's do overlay dash color. All right, we want to set a border radius because I want it to have that circle effect, although you don't have to do that, but I'm going to set that to 50%. And then the width and the height I'm going to set to 200 viewport widths because I want it to go outside of the screen. So let's say height also 200 viewport widths. Okay, and then we want to set display flex, but we want to set the flex property to none. Otherwise, it's going to give us this weird oval type of look. So let's align items to the center. Justify content center. I know that's pretty repetitive, but we want to make sure everything's centered correctly. Now, the way that we get that effect where it shoots out from the middle is by using transform and then scale. Okay, transform, you can do rotate, scale, skew. You can do different effects. Now, by default, we want it to be set to 0. All right. Now, if I save this, you can see that it's gone because scale 0 means that it's scaled down to 0. What we want to happen is when we click this, we want it to then scale to 1 and also transition so it's nice and smooth. So again, I'm going to comment this out for now just so we can still see it. And notice that the overlay color is now in the background. All right, so in order for it to transition smoothly, we need to add a transition. I'm going to say on all properties 0.4 seconds and ease. Okay, next thing we want to do is that second div. So I'm going to copy this and just add in that so we can target the next div, and we want to set the text align to center, and we're going to set a max width to 90 viewport widths, and then a max height of that div will be 100 viewport heights. All right, and then this is also gonna have an opacity of 0, which will make it disappear. But again, I'm going to comment that out just so I can see what the hell I'm doing now. So last thing is just the transition. I'm going to transition the opacity, 0.4 seconds, and ease. Okay. So the next thing I want to target is the list items here. Obviously, we don't want them to be purple and small and have bullets, so we're going to grab this. And then inside that div, we want the UL, LI. So let's set list style none. Get rid of those bullet points. And color to white. Now the color, this pertains to text. These are links, so that's why they're not white, but we're going to fix that. And then the font size, I'm going to set to 1.5 rem. Make that bigger, and let's add padding of 1 rem to separate them out. Okay, so now we want to target the links, so I'm just going to copy this, and we're just going to add on the A tag here, and the color I'll just do inherit, which will make them white, and we want to remove the text decoration, so remove that underline, set that to none. And I'm also going to add a transition on these for the color, and 0.4 ease seconds. And I should probably spell transition correctly. Okay. So let's see. Now we have this. We have the effect we want when we click it, but we need to make it so that, you know, this is not here initially, and then it pops up when we click this. So we want to go back and uncomment everything, the opacity. Okay, so that will take away the links. Uncomment the scale to 0, and the visibility to hidden. All right, so now let's say right here we'll say show menu. So we're going to do a couple different styles here that will allow us to now show it when the hamburger menu's clicked. So first thing we're going to do is target menu wrap, and we want the toggler when it's checked, and we want to target the menu inside. Whoops, it should be dot menu. All right, and we're going to set the visibility to visible because now it's checked, it's clicked. So we want visibility to go from hidden, which it is initially, to visible. All right, and then we also need to set the scale, but the scale is on that first div. So we're going to copy this selector right here, and we're just going to say greater than sign and then div, and we're going to set the transform scale value back to 1, which is its original scale, and then the transition duration is where I'm going to add that. Remember, we have that menu speed variable, so we can easily change the speed at which it opens. So we'll do menu speed. So now if I click that, we get that scale to 1, and it transitions nice and smoothly. Now we still can't see the links because those are in the inner div. So we'll copy this and target the second div, and that has an opacity of 0 to begin with. Now we want to set it to 1, and we just want to add a transition on the opacity, 0.4, and ease. All right, so that should do it. So now if I click that, awesome. So if it's big like this, you can see it goes right out of the screen because we set, remember, the height and width to 200 viewport widths. And if it's smaller like that, you can kind of see the outline of the circles, and you can change that if you want to extend that height and width or whatever. But I kind of like that. I like the effect. But yeah, so that's it, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this, and of course you can use this in other projects. I will put a link to the code pen in the description, So that's it. If you like this video, please leave a like. And I don't like to mention it too much, but I do have a Patreon account. I have the link in the description. So if you want to support the channel for even $1 per month, it's greatly appreciated. It keeps me going. YouTube ad revenue isn't the best right now. But that's it, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Hey guys, one of the best, if not the best resource I can refer you to for starting a freelance business is at studywebdevelopment.com/freelancing. The creator Kyle shared it with me, and I can personally vouch that this bundle is well worth it. You get a 130-page guide to freelancing, and it comes with things like invoice templates, client proposals, HTML and CSS templates, a portfolio website, access to a private Facebook community, and much more. So use the code BRAD25 to get 25% off today.